What's up, everybody? Welcome to Move the Sticks. DJ Buck back with you. Buck, what is up, man?
Man, I'm excited, DJ. The preseason is all done. We have another weekend and some change to wait, but we're about to kick off the real season. And what I kind of have mixed feelings about this part. What I hate about this part is obviously so many guys are going to hit the streets, mass exodus with all the cuts. But what I love about it is people putting the puzzle together. So now we're going to play real ball. And so everyone has kind of played with the cards close to the vest during the preseason. I can't wait to see what some of these teams are going to unleash during the regular season.
I'll give you my one nightmare Cutdown Day story. We've talked about being the Turk before. We've told some of those stories. I think you had to do this probably early on. We all did with, the boards, setting the boards up and the cards. And when the cuts come, it's a nightmare. You got to get all the cards. You got to get new ones printed for guys to get claimed. It's a pain. Now everything's digitally, but back then you had the general manager's office had the entire league up with magnets, and we had to print out the cards, and you had to have the logo on the card of the team that they were on, and the teams, by position up and down. So you'd have pull guys off, and then they get claimed. You got to print out. You can't just take their old card and put it up on this team. Nope. You got to
slide the logo.
Slide the little thing in there, and then go. So this is Cutdown Day. And we are at training camp in Westminster. I'm with the Ravens. And I've got to get back. Jeremiah Washburn and me, Jeremiah we've talked about before, is coach of the Eagles. So we got to do the boards. So we're at Westminster. We got to get back to the facility. And we're waiting on the email from the league. It's supposed to be like 5 o'clock. So we get there and it's 5. We're just, it's like we're just babysitting the computer in the office. There's nobody else in there. We're the only ones. We're like, this is going to take us forever to do all this, man. I wish these things would come in. 5 o'clock, nothing. 5:30, nothing. 6 o'clock, nothing. I'm like, what is going on? It gets to be like 7 o'clock. I'm like, there's no way this league is 2 hours behind. We walk by in the fax machine. They had faxed it to the teams. They hadn't sent the email. It had just been sitting on the fax machine, which a lot of people probably listen to don't even know what a fax machine is, had just been sitting there for 2 hours and we didn't know about it. And it was a long night. It was a long night getting all that done. But now, I mean, they're going from 90. There's no other cuts. This is it. This is the only one. So you're going from 90 to 53. I mean, that's a massive amount of guys getting ready to hit the street.
Yeah, massive amount of guys. It's kind of crazy to even think about that. Like that's going to be what happens. But you have all of that. You have people trying to compile the practice rosters. You have decision makers trying to figure out who you can slide through waivers, who can't, how those guys are going to be signed. You got to be ready to negotiate with certain guys to try and keep them on your squad or lure them away from other practice squad designations. It's a lot of chaos, but the good part is if you're a team, you now got 11 or 12 days to get your team ready to play. And so there's a lot of work that can be done during that time.
Yeah, no doubt. We have some fun stuff we're going to hit today. We're going to hit on these rookie quarterbacks. We have C.J. Stroud being named the starter in Houston. So we'll get to that. What are expectations, realistic expectations there? Anthony Richardson, the way he finished up the preseason, we'll touch on that as well as Bryce Young. We have the trade with Trey Lance to the Cowboys. We'll get to that in just a moment. Lots of things to get to. We'll touch on the games that we were at, but I got to tell you one more funny story, and then we'll get going here. You were doing the TV for the Jags in the preseason. I do the Chargers radio, but they had an issue where Noah Eagle, who does TV for the Chargers in the preseason, he had to fill in for Jack Collinsworth and get out to Ireland and call the Notre Dame game. So it ended up being Money, myself, and Dan Fouts doing the TV, which was simulcast on the radio. For the Chargers call. Yeah,
that's fun.
Yeah, it was fun. We had a good time, but Fouts, man, I grew up as somebody who grew up in San Diego. Like, Dan Fouts doesn't get bigger than that. And so it was, and I've had dinner with him a few times in mixed company, and it just seemed like the nicest guy. But you don't know what it's like to work with somebody till you work with them. Dan Fouts, sneaky funny. But I hit him up. We rolled a graphic and it showed I wanted to have the conversation, big picture preseason stuff. And I was like, the AFC quarterbacks that the Chargers and Herbert will have to get through to get a championship. And it's, it's all the guys. It's Mahomes and Burrow and Rodgers and Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, all these guys up on a graphic. So I said, Dan, can you remember a time we've had this many quarterbacks, in one conference? Like, it's so lopsided. It feels like Trevor was on there as well. Trevor Lawrence. Mm-hmm. And he goes, I'll be honest with you, I look at those guys and all I see is the dollar signs for the contracts that they just signed. I go, Dan, you imagine if they'd have had this pay structure when you were playing. I said, you would have flown your own helicopter to call this game tonight. He said, if they had had that pay structure when I was playing, I would not be at this
game. So funny. So I don't know if I ever told you this. They were like my favorite team during that era when he was the quarterback.
Well, they were chucking it.
So going all the way back to when they were doing, I just remember the game where they played down in the Orange Bowl and they have to take Kellen Winslow off.
The towel over his head?
Yeah, the towel over his head or whatever. But I just remember, and my guy DJ it wasn't Charlie Joyner, it wasn't Wes Chandler. My guy was John Jefferson.
Oh, JJ.
I loved JJ. It was something about the rec specs and they had it going and all that. I was heartbroken when they traded him away, but I love that team. And Chuck Muncie and the uniforms and the old school gold pants with the blue Chargers. Like, I just loved all of that. And so that's why it was funny when in college, Natron leaves early and ends up there. It's always kind of funny. But, man, I used to love to watch the Chargers play. And so it's funny to see you talk about Dan Fouts and all that because I just remember how good they were and how that football was different because the quarterback is calling his own plays and they're throwing it. And Charlie Joyner was my first coach. He's my first position coach in the pros. And Charlie told me, look, sometimes it's always like the wives' tale that continues to grow. Yeah. He said that he and Dan Fouts could run what is called the Bang 8 blindfolded. So a Bang 8 for you guys to know is a skinny post. And the way that it's done, if you can visualize it, if you're on the numbers, whatever it is, the football numbers, if you line up in the middle of the numbers, as a wide receiver, you go straight down the field, you angle out to the bottom of the numbers. You hit the bottom of the numbers right around 11 or 12 yards, and you angle, but not for the upright, but you basically angle to 1 yard inside that number. And when it's thrown against cover 3, it is unguardable. You can't stop it. Like, you cannot stop it. So Charlie Joyner used to tip my rookie year. He used to make me call him Greatness. So I had to call Charlie Joyner Greatness every day when I would show up. So I got Andre Reed there. I got Bill Brooks there, but I got to call the coach Greatness. No one else has to call him that but me. I got to call him Greatness. So anyway, he swore that he and Dan Fouts used to run that route blindfolded, that he could put on a blindfold and Dan Fouts would put it right in the chest because that's how many times they done it. So that's my memory of Dan Fouts because Charlie Joyner would always talk about greatness. I could all day.
Well, he said when we were talking off air before the game or during the game, it came up there was a short yardage play, and he was talking about their offense that they had. And I said, Dan, like if there a lot of times you'll see if you're watching games on Sunday, you'll see it every week when the quarter's running down and you have a short yardage play or whatever. You'll see the offense get up to the line, and it's just they're not going to snap the ball. They're just trying to get a hard count. They don't even have a play call. They're not going to run a play. They're just seeing if they can get you to jump, and then the quarter expires and off they go. So we were talking about that and then other short yardage. And I was talking to him about, what are your thoughts on the hard count? Like short yardage situations. Like he goes, the defense is aware of it. I mean, what are you going to get them 1 out of 100 times? I mean, I got Chuck Muncie back there. What do I care? Just snap the ball and give it to Chuck Muncie.
Don't make it hard.
Yeah, no, he was great though, man. He was fun.
Yeah,
we had a fun time.
That's funny. He's like, don't make it harder than what it is.
So
keep it really simple.
So while we're up there in San Francisco, it's a couple hours before the game. We're sitting in the press box, and all of a sudden, ding, ding, ding. You look down at your phone, and the Trey Lance trade happens. He goes to the Dallas Cowboys for a 4th-round pick. I had been, alerted that there was a high possibility he would be traded before that game kicked off. I was thinking Minnesota, is kind of the team that was out there that you're hearing that might be the landing spot. It ends up being Dallas, kind of out of left field. So just your first takeaway on the decision to make the trade and what you thought of Dallas making this move.
I love the Dallas Cowboys making the move. And here's why I love it. Mike McCarthy spent a lot of time in Green Bay. In Green Bay, the fundamental philosophy is you're always in the quarterback business. You always want to be in the mindset of developing quarterbacks. You've seen it in Philadelphia when Howie Roseman talked about we want to be a quarterback factory. Andy Reid spent time in Green Bay when I was there. Ron Wolf was there. Ron Wolf had learned this from Al Davis. You always kick the tires on a quarterback. The reason why is because a change of scenery, a new environment, a new voice. You might be able to bring something out of that quarterback. Mike McCarthy has talked about the old days before the new CBA, where you used to have the quarterback school, where in the offseason you could pour all your time and resources into developing the 4 quarterbacks that are on your roster. You give them tools, you break down their stuff. He goes all the way back to doing it with Joe Montana and Steve Young and all those guys. Like, just they had videos and collections of just watching those guys develop. Well, I can't think of a better situation for Trey Lance to be in than one where he doesn't have the pressure of having to live up to the expectations that came along with him being the 3rd overall pick. Dak Prescott is the franchise quarterback. Dak Prescott has, look, a wad of cash that ensures that he's going to be QB1. Dak Prescott is a good leader and willing to give of anything to the guys in the room. You've heard people talk about how he just like is willing to share whatever. So now Trey Lance gets to go in there and just work. Just do the work. Watch Dak Prescott be a leader. Mike McCarthy can pour into him hard in the season, but next offseason, really dig into his mechanics, his footwork, and teach him how to play. And guess what? If it never works, it was a 4th-round pick.
4th-round pick, yeah. I think it's a no-brainer. I think it's a no-brainer on the Cowboys side. I think the other side of it, Buck, real quick. Who's the team in that division they got to beat?
Oh, it's the Philadelphia Eagles.
Who's going to give you a better look in practice to beat Jalen Hurts than Trey Lance?
Yeah. I mean, all those things matter.
That's just a bonus. I mean, that's not the reason why you make the trade, but that's a nice little bonus.
All of it. I mean, all of it. I mean, you have it. How many people have a 1st-round quarterback as the number 3 right now? Yeah. Like, that talent alone is what. And look, and I know people will say, "Hey, you got to get off your draft grades and all that." Hey, it is what it is.
Off your draft grades, they got him for a 4th-round pick.
Right. The consensus around the league when Trey Lance came out was that he was worthy of being a 1st-round pick. Mm-hmm. So that talent is there somewhere. Everyone around the league saw him as a 1st-round talent. So now, if you're the Dallas Cowboys, there's no pressure to get him on the field. You try to develop him the best that you can, and you see what it is. It's no different than when the Carolina Panthers took Sam Darnold. It's no different than when the San Francisco 49ers continue to take Sam Darnold. The talent is there. You try and work with the talent. So to me, from the Cowboys standpoint, this is it. But people need to get off of Trey Lance is there to replace Dak Prescott. We don't know how good a player Trey Lance is or is going to be. The thing that you do is you want to develop him and see what he could be, and then you make the decision after that in terms of how he fits into your long-term plan. But from the Cowboy standpoint, this is a no-brainer all day, every day. You gotta kick the tires and see what he could be in your system with your development plan.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens with Cooper Rush. You know, he's a number 2. He's played decently well when he's been given opportunities. Maybe he's moving on soon at the end of his contract, and then that opens the door for Trey to be the number 2, and then you kind of just see, okay, we'll hold him as long as we can develop him. I mean, they're not going to pick up his 5th-year option. I mean, he's not going to play between now and then, so I don't imagine how in the world it would be like $28 million or something like that. That's not happening. So you've got 2 years.
He has 2 years. He has 2 years. And so DJ, the going rate for a backup quarterback, a good backup quarterback, is like $5-6 million annually. So if they have to pick up some of that, that's just the cost of doing business. But to me, last year we saw over 70 different quarterbacks start a game in the National Football League. Trey Lance has started like a handful of games. Okay, say there's an injury to your 2 guys. You got to have somebody in the fold. So to me, this is not about moving on from Cooper Rush. This is making sure in our quarterback room, we have enough to be able to get through the season just in case. That's due diligence. That's what you should do as a team. And so for me, it made a lot of sense for the Cowboys to make the move.
How about the other side of it, the Niners? I mean, obviously you didn't get anywhere near the recoup the value that you had. But to me, everybody was talking about the fact that, okay, well, Sam Darnold was named the 2. That's why they made this trade. I actually think it was that they were more comfortable with Brandon Allen as the 3, because they need to have 3 when Brandon Allen's on the practice squad or however they do it. But they showed last year that 2 was not enough to get them through. They needed 3 quarterbacks. There's no way they have only 2 quarterbacks rostered, once we get to the start. No chance. So to me, that was the decision they made, which goes back to the conversation we had last week, which was Kyle Shanahan, he toyed with the idea of changing what he does and trying to create a new offense around a different skill set. And then due to injuries, and then due to Brock Purdy playing well, and due to being in a Super Bowl with Matt Ryan and being in a Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo, I think he just came to the conclusion, look, the system is king. It's my system. It's what I do. It's what I know. I'm going to stay in that lane, and Brandon Allen fits better in this system than Trey Lance does. That was my takeaway.
Pretty simple to me. I mean, that's what it is. Like, and there may be this. It's I can say this as a coach sometimes. Like sometimes things don't go the way that you want them to go, and sometimes you've been maybe kind of pushed or nudged in a certain area to go. Like, hey, coach, I think we need to go. And you're like, man, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I wonder if Mike Shanahan was like, man, I don't know. Like, I kind of like this kind of quarterback, and you kind of get nudged in a different direction, and then you go and it doesn't work, and then now you go, we did it your way. Now I'm gonna do it my way.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable with a certain style quarterback. I'm going with it. And so I think Kyle Shanahan is at that point. I am comfortable with the guy that allows me to play the game a certain way. That's what we're going to do. No knock to Trey Lance, but it wasn't working. It hadn't worked out. Circumstances sometimes not Trey's fault, but now I'm going to go this direction. I'm going all in on Brock Purdy and guys that have skill sets like that because that's where I've had my most success.
No doubt. Before we get to some of these rookie quarterbacks, the game you were at, Jacksonville, give me you always give me a couple nugs there. What do we got? A couple nuggets to take out of from that.
Okay, so look, I understand it, and I'm fully acknowledge Homer status. I'm a Homer. I'm with the Jaguars, like you with the Chargers. I see him all the time. I am drinking the Doug Peterson Kool-Aid. I'm all in. This offense that they have and they're putting together, I'm telling you right now, one, the city of Jacksonville has never seen their team led by an offense where an offense can hit 30. This offense is going to get close to 30 points a game. If they stay healthy, it's going to be really hard to stop this offense. Calvin Ridley is even better than I think people can imagine. This dude is unbelievable. He is a true number one. And I think you can have conversations at the end of this season about him being a top 5 player in the same conversation with Devontae Adams and Justin Jefferson in terms of his route run ability, Stephon Diggs in terms of getting open, in terms of being a true number one receiver. He's really that good. He is going to set the table for those other guys, Evan Ingram, Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, to get loose. And then the X factor for this offense is what they can do in the backfield. It's always been the conversation about Travis Etienne. I'm telling you guys right now, if you're going to go fantasy, you draft Travis Etienne, you need to go ahead and get Tank Bigsby as the handcuff because he gives them that downhill runner that you need to finish games. And if you go back and look at Doug Peterson's history, he's always done it back by committee. In Philly, he had LeGarrette Blount. Tank Bigsby gives him the LeGarrette Blount character. He fills that role. So this offense is ready to go. If they can live through the first couple of weeks on the O-line with Cam Robinson being out, this team is going to score a lot of points. And that's going to give them a chance to be in the conversation as one of those teams we talked about going far in the playoffs.
Nice. I'll give you the quick takeaways here from the Niners side. They played their starters. Purdy looked pretty sharp, getting the ball out on time. I mean, it is a point guard. That's what he's going to do. They moved the ball up and down the field the first 2 drives. They fumbled going to the end zone at the 1, and they had a touchdown drive. So their first team offense looked good. The other side of it, the Chargers playing their backups, and it's like, what do you learn from it if you're not playing your starters? They've run the ball. They ran the ball down their throats. They popped the 75-yarder with Joshua Kelly. This is a team that almost ran for 300 yards against the Rams, and in that game, they had a 75-yard touchdown run called back by Spiller. Kellen Moore has this run game kind of dialed in, and they make you deal with a lot of different things. And I want to hit you on this one question with this one aspect of it. One thing that's always befuddled me is why more teams don't take advantage, whether you want to call it orbit motion, deep motion, whatever you want to call it, to hold the backside. And Buck, it's free of, you're literally getting a free of charge block is what you're getting, because you have to account for that ball going to that receiver. You have to account for it. If nothing else, it's just eye candy and it's going to grab your attention. And if that causes you to freeze for a count, but they do it a lot. And now they have with Quentin Johnson, who they haven't used in this fashion yet, but I imagine that's coming. They're going to pitch him 1 or 2 of those a game. Darius Davis, a TCU speedster, the returner, give him in there. And even if you don't give him the ball, you have to respect him and honor him. So they're making you now defend the width of the field with the run game. And then they have got a downhill rushing attack, some duo, some power, you name it. They can get downhill in a hurry. Look, it's 6 years I've been doing it with the Chargers. Preseason, I always say preseason's a liar, but you can see kind of a theme starting to emerge. And I'm like, I haven't seen this cohesive a rushing attack from them since I've been doing this.
And that's the one thing in my mind that's been missing from the Chargers. They haven't had the ability to.
They were 30th in the league in the run last year. 30th.
And as much as I love Justin Herbert, as much as we say it's about players, not plays, you want to put the ball in the hands of your best players. You don't want him to have it all the time against a defense that knows that you're reluctant to run the ball. In running the ball, what you do is you create more big play opportunities, play action, loaded boxes, and those things. It also gives you an opportunity to finish the game the right way. You get up on people and, hey, let's take a little air out of it. Let's kind of grind it out a little bit. And I'll say this, just maybe it's the old school mentality that I have. Your toughness comes from your ability to run the ball when everyone knows that you have to run it. No matter how you want to play, you still, at some point in games, you got to be able to punch people in the mouth to just retain enough physicality to them. So if they can run the ball, Spiller, Austin Eckler, whoever, as Kellen Moore designs it, it gives them a better opportunity to be one of those teams that's the last one standing in the AFC tournament.
I was talking to another coach who's going against Kellen Moore and asked him what makes it challenging. Obviously the numbers they put up in Dallas are what they are. Just, what is it? Because I was talking to him about this run game and what they're doing, and I think it's a good sign for them offensively. And he said maybe more so than any play caller in the league. This is high praise, but he said Kellen knows your rules defensively. Like I love for you to hit on that, Buck, as a play caller, the importance of knowing what the rules are on the other side of the ball for that particular defense.
Okay, so let's talk about it first, like Kellen Moore, but I'll do it because we listen to the podcast Play Callers on Kyle Shanahan. And I think if you haven't heard it, guys, you need to listen to it on The Athletic. It was great. But Kyle Shanahan talked about like knowing the defensive rules. See, because in my experience, I've been around a lot of offensive coaches and they think they know what the defense is doing. They're going to be in quarters. This is what they're doing. And then you tell them, hey, from defense, I don't think that at all. That's not what the rule is. So if you really know defense, and if you spent some time on the defense side of the ball, it now gives you an opportunity to be able to attack. It's almost like when you see former DAs become criminal defense attorneys. You think about law and order. They know how the other side thinks, so it gives them the ability to attack. Like from a strategy standpoint, you know how to do it. That's where it comes from. So when I think about Kellen Moore and his ability to understand what they're doing on defense, well, now I can put people in conflict. A lot of what RPOs do, they put people in binds because you cannot be right. I'm not going to allow you to be right. I'm going to put you under this stress that makes you fall apart. If Kellen Moore has that kind of intel on how to make defenses kind of put them in dilemmas and binds, well, now, I mean, it just opens up the floodgates for what this offense can do to you.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. It's an aspect of calling plays I don't think people think about. It's not just what we do. It's also knowing, okay, when they present this look, I have answers. And you have a smart quarterback, it's really helpful because those answers might be presented late in the play clock. You're not in their ear anymore. You need that quarterback to be able to understand what the rules are and where they can exploit it. And that's it's something to keep an eye on when you're looking at these offenses. You expect to have a big jump this year. Continuity is a big part of it, but also having somebody that's calling the plays up there that gets it. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll come back. We'll talk about these rookie quarterbacks as well as some of the college action, what stood out to us this past weekend. All right, Buck, rookie quarterbacks. CJ Stroud was named the starter. So just kind of a thumbnail sketch. What are realistic expectations for these three guys? When we think about Bryce Young, we can start there. CJ Stroud, Anthony Richardson. What are you looking for? What should we expect as we get ready to kick this thing off?
Okay, of the three, let's talk about Bryce Young first because I'm the most optimistic about him. When you heard Frank Reich talk about Bryce Young, he just talked about how this guy is just the maturity beyond his years, just a great understanding of how to manage the game, which is really important for rookies because a lot of times that's the thing that they don't understand. How to play complementary football, offense, defense, special teams, making sure that I don't put the defense in harm's way. So I'm going to take care of the ball, understanding how to command the huddle, get everybody going. And then the talent speaks for itself. He's a talented player. He can make the throws and all that. He, to me, of the others, is in the best situation. He has a better team around him. This defense can keep the score down. Offensively, I'm not saying they're the most high-powered offense, but I think they can manufacture some things to allow him to play solid football where they can win. So I'm very positive about Bryce Young, his maturity, his experience at Alabama, playing under a grizzled coach in Nick Saban should prepare him to play well from the jump. I don't think the numbers will be crazy, but I think the wins will be there for Bryce Young.
Yeah, gosh, I'm not even really worried about him. This sounds crazy to say about a guy who hadn't played yet. I'm worried about what's around him. We always talk about the P's, we talk about the
Mhm.
play caller, which I think they're great with the play caller. The protection, the playmakers,
Yeah.
like they
Yeah.
got some work to do on the other P's. They've got the quarterback, they've got the play caller. I still think the talent around him is not great. But the words that I wrote down, I went back and watched every play from him in the preseason this morning, and some of it you talked about, Buck. But to me, the stuff that jumped out, the poise, the calm, the maturity, the vision, like all those things
Mhm.
are accelerated well beyond what you should be at this point in time. There's a reason why when we were going through the draft process, we talked about the fact that I know he doesn't have Aaron Rodgers, maybe his arm strength, obviously doesn't have his size, but there are a lot of similarities. Aaron Rodgers looks like he was born to stand in the pocket and just get comfortable back there and make everything look smooth and easy. I think about that throw of Joe Burrow when they slow it down and he throws it and does like kind of like a 360 in warmups, and just like, golly, how do you make that look so easy and so smooth and so cool? That to me is what you see from Bryce. He's very comfortable. He doesn't look like with anything moving around, or he doesn't look like he's phased. But I don't know if they're going to be able to protect him. And I don't know they have a lot of guys that can win. That's why I'm a little bit nervous about what the results might look like, although I believe they got the player right.
Yeah, absolutely. They got to play it right. And as long as you get the player right, you'll eventually find a way to figure it out. And some of the stuff coming out of there, they talked about they threw a lot at the team during the preseason. They'll take the next 2 weeks to figure out what they do well, what works for their personnel, and then put together a game plan that allows them to have success with what they have. I'm excited to see what that looks like when they kind of kick off for real in a couple weeks.
How about CJ?
So to me, CJ, I expected him to be the starter. I thought that his talent would eventually show through, and we've seen flashes of him being able to play and play pretty well. He has to work through some of the growing pains. This offense is a lot different than what he played in Ohio State, but we've talked about it. He's probably the more natural, maybe the most natural of all the throwers that we regard as his high end talents. We just need to see him have the consistency, and I would say the urgency, and that urgency comes from the confidence to let it go on time, and trust that his wide receivers will be there. When he gets to that point, that's when this offense will be terrific.
Buck, with CJ, I thought with him the encouraging thing was going through the video was the trend line was going up. So from when we first saw him, I think it was New England in that first preseason game, a little shaky. I didn't think he really trusted his eyes all that much. He was holding the ball at times, and then you just saw him get better. And by all accounts, what you heard from training camp, it was the same thing. They named him the starter late. Personally, I wish they almost would have done that a little bit earlier, just to give him, even more reps, practice reps. Maybe they did. I don't know how they divvied up the practice reps, but I hope he's got enough to get him ready to go. I just know when I watched him in limited action last week that he looked way more comfortable than what I saw in that first game against the New England Patriots. So the trend line's going up. I think they got to run the heck out of the ball. Let him push the ball over the top vertically. That's where he's gonna thrive, make some big plays. I don't expect him to be completing 70% of his passes. I don't expect them to throw it all over the lot, but I expect you're going to see a mixture of some big plays, and they're going to run the ball and try and play as good a defense as they can, and that's going to be kind of their formula early on. But I think more than anything else, you're going to see Stroud doing something he hasn't done a lot of in college. You're going to see him get better and better and better as the season goes along.
That's the expectation. He's going to get better over the course of the season. They don't have a lot around him, but they certainly, I believe, they can play great defense. They can run the
Yeah.
football. D'Amico's going to make it where it's a complementary game where they're running and playing defense. And then you'll wait for CJ Stroud to kind of develop and get to the point where he can be more of a playmaker than a game manager. And that'll happen in time. The talent is there. I think the toughness is also there. So I would expect to see him have kind of like some mixed results, but eventually flash enough where we start getting excited about his talent.
How about Anthony?
So Anthony is the wild card because Anthony is the one that kind of has the ooh-ah factor about him. Everyone is just really impressed with what he's able to do as an athlete. Big arm talent, tremendous athlete that can run and do those things. And a lot is going to be on him. I thought it would be better if Jonathan Taylor was there and fully on
Yeah.
board and took care of him and you run it. Now I'm a little worried about him being a one-man show and having to maybe do more than we expected. But he's talented enough to make some things happen. Might be more, I would say, splash plays than these consistent plays that we were going to see from some of the other guys.
Yeah, you're probably going to appreciate him more in the highlight package than you would kind of going through the all 22 and looking at it that way, because there are going to be some of those big plays, the splash plays. I would break it down almost to two different guys, Buck, when you watch it. When you watch him off play action, whether that's RPOs, whether that's just pure drop back play action, or whether they're booting him, everything off play action, he just looks so much more comfortable. I think it's something when you've played in that kind of spread offense in the gun and you're riding the back and it's RPOs, or you're riding it and you're rolling, he looks like a different guy. Now, when it's just pure drop back, no play action, and then get to the top of your drop, settle in there, get comfortable, work through your progressions, deliver the ball. Whereas I said Bryce Young looks like he's been doing that his whole life, as a rookie. Anthony Richardson, that's a work in progress. You saw a couple glimpses of some nice throws, but there's some where you're like, oh, man, okay, he's not seeing it. He's not feeling it. He's two different guys there. So I'm with you on the Jonathan Taylor thing. You think, man, okay, if you could run the ball, now we can really lean into it with RPOs and play action. I think that's where he's going to have a chance to be successful. But man, Buck, if the defense for some reason doesn't play well and they find themselves down in games and you eliminate the run action, he's gonna have a hard time early on. Let's be hopeful and optimistic about where this can go. But he's not ready for that side of it at this point in time, like Bryce is, and I would say like CJ would be.
No, in my mind, it would be disastrous if he's throwing it 30 to 35 times a game early. Somehow you got to protect him, keep the pitch count down. I just wouldn't want to see him do that because he's going to take some shots. I worry about the confidence a little bit, but that's the thing that troubles me about that situation. Without the running game, man, how do you protect him? How do you keep it together for him?
Yeah, we'll know one thing though, that is a team that's interesting now. It was a team that was really boring the last couple of years, and they'll be fun to watch with Anthony Richardson. He'll bring some excitement. Hopefully the trend line continues to head north, and we'll see him get better and better as the year goes along. College football kicked off last week. Not a lot of exciting games, but we did see some action outside of San Diego State's quarterback hitting the ref in the face. I don't know if you saw that. That was probably the most exciting thing. Oh, God. You got to see that video. It's not a great look. But outside of that, it was kind of funny, except for the ref. But SC played. Defense wasn't great. Kind of what we saw last year. The offense was dynamic. I don't know if you got a chance to see any of that on the Pac-12 network, but Caleb did some nice things. The stats look great. Some of it, was sitting in the pocket, reading it, delivering it. The biggest play of the day, I think, for him though, was off of a ball that ended up on the ground. He scoops it up and throws a 75-yard touchdown.
I mean, he's super talented. Pay closer attention to that game because it was going on the same time as the Jags game was kind of going and wrapping up. So
there you go. Yeah.
And a little bit of attention to it, but they were playing San Jose State, so they're playing my son's squad. So I was looking in, and the game was 21-14 at halftime. Which to think, they got it going obviously in the second half, and the freshman, what is it,
Zachariah Branch? That's a bad dude, man. He looked like Tavon Austin. That was my tweet on that. He looked just like Tavon Austin did at West Virginia.
Scooting around and that stuff. And let's be real. So for SC being one of the teams that we talk about as a playoff team, it's never going to be the offense that is the question. No. Can they play good enough defense to deal with the heavyweights that they're going to have to knock off? That to me, that's the thing. Can they ever get to the point where they're playing well enough, playing on defense to be able to kind of slow teams down?
Yeah, that's going to be the challenge. On the other side of it, Notre Dame beat the brakes off Navy over there in Ireland. Sam Hartman, I posted this. I was looking it up. He's 24 years old. He's 3 years older than Anthony Richardson. So the quarterback in Notre Dame is 3 years older than the starting quarterback of the Indianapolis Colts. We talked about it, a bunch over the last month about the quarterbacks having success in the preseason. Aiden O'Connell, I think about DTR. These guys played a lot of college football. They're older. They're more mature. And now you get a chance to see coming out of that slow mesh offense he was in at Wake Forest. Now he goes to Notre Dame. He's under center. It's going to be a different challenge for Sam Hartman, but I thought he looked He looked like he was playing pretty darn good in the portion of it that I saw. And I think with the success of the Brock Purdy's of the world and these guys that have played a lot of ball, Sam Hartman's one that, hey, we better pay attention to him.
Yeah. So Notre Dame, much better performance to start the season than we saw last year where they started out slow. Hartman, experienced player, played at Wake Forest, gives them the experience that they needed at the position. And it's a matter of them continuing to build upon what they displayed over in Ireland. Short story. It's funny that they were playing Navy over in Dublin. Back in, I think it might have been 2012, DJ, I was coaching in LA at Notre Dame Sherman Oaks. Mm-hmm. We played in Ireland before Notre Dame played Navy.
Really?
And yeah. So we saved up for 2 years. And I think this make you laugh. I think we saved up the money by recycling. So everyone, we recycled for over a year, maybe a year or 2 years to save up for that trip. We went over, played a team from Arizona, Hamilton, which was a perennial state champion. We played over there on a Friday night. And then the next day, we went to, I think it was Gallic Stadium, and watched Notre Dame play Navy. And so I'm watching, I'm like, this is like deja vu. I've seen this. But no, it was great. I think it's great for Notre Dame to go over there and do that. It's even better that Marcus Freeman had his team ready to play. But Notre Dame will be judged on how they perform against some of the heavyweights that they'll face down the line.
Yeah, they got some big games coming up. Ohio State, they play Clemson, they play USC, so it's a good schedule for Notre Dame. It kicks off in earnest this weekend. We got a full slate of college football with some great matchups. We'll jump into that a little bit on the next episode. Give you a little mini preview of some guys we're looking forward to watching there. Anything else you want to jump into, Buck, before we jump out of here?
No, we just got to remember to touch on Spencer Rattler versus Drake May, Carolina versus South Carolina.
Everybody's going to that thing.
Everybody's going to that because look, we got some great games. But man, if you're into quarterback play, nice weekend to check out some of the top quarterbacks.
Yeah, well, you've got that, and I think, you got the Duke quarterback that's right there. I don't know if they're at home or not.
And then LSU plays what, Florida State?
Yeah, so you got people going
Jaden Daniels and Jordan Travis. Yeah. So
I think Nagy might even been hitting on that too. You're gonna see a bunch of scouts at those games, so that'll be fun. All right, that's gonna do it for us today. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. We are very close to having NFL games to talk about, and then Move the Sticks. We're gonna have a little extra for you this fall. Just tease you with that. A little extra Move the Sticks this fall. We'll give you an announcement on that shortly. But we will be back in a couple days with another episode, and we'll look ahead to a big college football weekend as there's no NFL action this week. The cuts are coming. Maybe they'll give us a trade or two we can discuss as well. We'll see you next time right here on Move the Sticks.